My name is Captain Lauren Reed, United States Air Force, Logistics Division. After 8 months overseas, I finally got 2 weeks of leave. My mom had just recovered from heart surgery in Boston, and I hadn't seen her in almost a year. My sister, Megan, said she'd pick me up at the airport. She sounded warm on the phone, almost too warm for someone who hadn't answered my last 5 calls. I should have noticed that. I didn't. It was a regular Thursday at LAX. I was half asleep at the gate, sipping burnt coffee, scrolling through an email thread I shouldn't have been reading. My name was mentioned in a defense contract audit, Helix Dynamics, the company my sister worked for. I'd filed a report on them a few months earlier for overbilling the Air Force on drone parts. The investigation hadn't gone public yet, but somehow the emails felt colder every time Megan's name came up. They called boarding for Delta Flight 472 to Boston. The crowd moved like cattle, tired but polite. Nothing felt unusual, until I noticed the flight attendants. Most of them were doing their usual routine, smiling, greeting passengers, but one woman stood out. She was watching people, not greeting them. Her name tag read Alyssa Grant. She didn't look nervous, but she didn't look calm either. Her eyes followed every passenger who walked by, like she was matching faces to a list in her head. When I reached my seat, 14C aisle, she paused a second too long, just enough for me to notice. I smiled politely. She didn't smile back. Instead, she blinked once, stiffly, and turned away. I chalked it up to a weird day at work. Everyone in uniform looks suspicious now, especially in airports. I shoved my carry-on into the overhead bin, sat down, and started typing a text to Megan. Boarded. Mom doesn't know I'm coming. You'd better have that lasagna ready. She replied with a single line, "You'll never forget this flight." I laughed quietly. Megan always had a dramatic streak. 10 minutes later, we were taxiing. A businessman across the aisle was already asleep. A teenager 2 rows ahead was hugging his backpack like it contained his soul, and a woman in a gray suit kept staring at the front of the plane instead of her phone. Everyone looked tense in their own little ways, but that's normal these days. Alyssa came down the aisle, pretending to check seatbelts. She moved methodically row by row, nodding at passengers. When she reached me, she leaned slightly over my tray table and placed a folded napkin in front of me. No smile, no eye contact. Then she walked away. At first, I thought she'd dropped it by mistake. Then I noticed her hand had trembled when she set it down. I opened the napkin. There were 7 words, written fast and messy in blue ink. "Get off this plane. Your sister set you up." My brain didn't register it immediately. I looked up. Alyssa was halfway down the aisle, pretending to rearrange a magazine rack. She didn't glance back. I stared at the napkin like it was a prank. Maybe someone was filming reactions for a TikTok challenge. Maybe a passenger nearby was trying to mess with me. But when I glanced around, everyone was calm. Normal. Then Alyssa turned her head for half a second. Our eyes met. Her expression didn't say, "Joke." It said, "You're in danger." I folded the napkin, tucked it under my thigh, and sat still. My training told me to stay calm, observe, analyze, but my heartbeat wasn't listening. Across from me, the businessman opened the overhead bin again, even though it was already closed. He peeked inside, then sat back down, and wiped his palms on his pants. The teenager whispered something into his hands, rocking slightly. The woman in the gray suit was typing furiously, glancing up every few seconds. I reached for my phone to text Megan again. My fingers hesitated over the screen. What would I even ask? "Hey, did you frame me for something?" Instead I typed, "Everything okay at Helix?" She replied almost instantly, "Focus on your flight. You'll land fine." That's when I stopped breathing for a second. You'll land fine, not safe flight or see you soon. Just that strange mechanical reassurance. I glanced up again. Alyssa was now at the front, speaking quietly to another crew member. They were both avoiding eye contact with passengers. Something was definitely off. I thought about standing up, telling the crew I was sick anything to get off. But the rational part of my brain kept arguing. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe Alyssa slipped the napkin to the wrong person. Maybe your sister was a coincidence. The engines roared louder. The plane began to turn toward the runway. I gripped the armrest. My mouth was dry. I'd faced down armed contractors, explosions, and malfunctioning drones. But this was different. This wasn't a mission. This was me, in civilian clothes, sitting on a plane where something was about to go very, very wrong. Alyssa appeared beside me again, pretending to check my seatbelt. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Do it now. Say you feel sick. If you stay on this flight, you won't land alive." I froze. "What are you talking about?" I whispered back. Her eyes darted toward the man in the black jacket near the emergency exit, then back to me. "Just trust me." Her face was pale. She wasn't acting. She wasn't crazy either. I knew that look. It was the look of someone trying to prevent a disaster they couldn't stop. I reached for the call button but hesitated. What if I drew attention to myself? What if I looked suspicious? The napkin felt like it was burning through my pocket. Then came a loud thud from the back of the plane. Passengers turned. A male attendant ran past me, his face white as paper. The teenager was breathing fast, muttering, "It's not mine. I didn't do it." Alyssa moved fast, stepping toward the cockpit. Her voice over the intercom sounded calm but clipped. "Captain, we need to return to the gate. Medical concern, row 14. My stomach dropped. Row 14. That was me. People groaned. The businessman muttered something about missing meetings. Nobody knew what was really happening. I kept staring at Alyssa, and she gave me the smallest nod, as if to say thank you for not arguing. The engine slowed. The plane turned. For a few seconds, everything felt normal again, until I caught sight of the man in the black jacket standing up slowly. His eyes locked on me. He stretched his arms like nothing was wrong, but his gaze said otherwise. Alyssa moved quickly between us, pretending to steady me. "Ma'am, please stay seated. We'll get you some water," she said loudly, for everyone to hear. Then she whispered, "Don't look back. Someone's watching you." Her hand was firm on my shoulder. Her tone was steady, but her breathing wasn't. I followed her down the aisle, pretending to be dizzy. Every step felt heavier than the last. She led me toward the front galley, murmuring to the other attendant. The word return repeated through the radio. The captain's voice came through. "Confirm medical? Passenger stable?" Alyssa replied, "Not stable, sir. Request emergency return." Her voice cracked on the word emergency. The engines eased again. The plane slowed. People grumbled, some taking out their phones. Nobody realized that something much bigger than a medical issue was unfolding. I sat there, pulse hammering, Alyssa beside me, pretending to fetch oxygen. She didn't look at me, but her whisper carried through the hum of the cabin. "Your seat was changed this morning, right?" I nodded. She stared straight ahead. "Then someone wanted you sitting there." The words landed harder than the turbulence that followed. The air around me felt heavy, like the whole cabin had shifted, and I was the only one who knew why. And then I heard the pilot's voice again, calm and professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be returning to the gate due to a minor passenger issue. Please remain seated." Minor issue. Right. I looked at Alyssa, who didn't blink once. That's when I realized I wasn't supposed to survive this flight. And I hadn't even left the ground yet. The plane was still moving when I realized I was holding my breath. Alyssa's grip on my arm loosened as we stopped near the gate. My pulse was hammering so hard it felt like my heartbeat filled the cabin. I could see passengers craning their necks, annoyed and curious, trying to figure out why we hadn't taken off. Alyssa leaned close again, keeping her voice soft. "We're going to open the door soon. Stay calm. Don't talk to anyone unless they're in uniform." She stepped away to signal the cockpit. I sat there, pretending to breathe through nausea. My mind ran through every scenario: terror threat, mistaken identity, prank, but one thought kept cutting through the noise. "Your sister set you up." The captain's voice broke through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be returning to the gate for a brief medical situation. Please remain seated until instructed." The businessman across the aisle sighed dramatically. Unbelievable. Every damn flight. Nobody laughed. When the door finally opened, the first person to enter wasn't medical staff. It was a man in a plain dark jacket with an earpiece. Two more followed behind him, scanning the cabin. Their eyes locked on me. Alyssa moved fast, speaking before they did. "Passenger 14 Charlie reported disorientation and chest pain." The man nodded slightly. "We'll take it from here." I stood up slowly, keeping my hands visible. Years in the military teach you how to read posture, tone, body language. These guys weren't airline staff. They were federal. Air marshals, maybe. As I stepped off the plane, I caught one last look at Alyssa. She was staring at the overhead compartments like she was memorizing their contents. Her jaw was tight, her hands steady. She gave me the slightest nod, barely visible, and then turned away. The tunnel connecting the plane to the gate was filled with cold air that smelled like disinfectant. My legs were stiff, my brain still trying to connect dots that didn't make sense. The agents didn't say a word as we walked. One of them guided me toward a service hallway behind the terminal, away from the crowd. We entered a small room with beige walls and 2 metal chairs. No windows. "Captain Reed," one of them said finally, "you were carrying a checked bag labeled under your name, correct?" "Yes," I said, my voice coming out hoarse. "Standard issue." "Why?" He didn't answer. The second agent placed a small black case on the table and opened it. Inside was a sealed plastic pouch. My name was printed on the tag inside, along with my military ID number. The item inside wasn't mine. It was a silver external hard drive with a red security sticker that read, "Classified, U.S. Air Force Systems." I stared at it. "That's not mine." The first agent crossed his arms. "We know. The problem is, someone wants it to look like it is." My mouth went dry. "My sister works for Helix Dynamics," I said. "She's in the finance division. Her name is Megan Reed." Both agents exchanged a look. One of them scribbled something on his pad. "That name came up earlier this week," he said. "We're investigating Helix for unauthorized transfers of classified materials." I swallowed hard. "Transfers to who?" He didn't answer again. Typical federal poker face. The door opened behind them, and Alyssa walked in, no longer in uniform. Her hair was tied back, and she carried a folder under her arm. Her badge was clipped to her jacket, now Department of Homeland Security. The agent nodded toward her. "Agent Grant has been working undercover on this flight for 3 months. She received a tip that someone would attempt to move sensitive data disguised under a passenger's manifest." Alyssa sat down across from me. Her calm, professional tone was gone. Now she sounded human, exhausted. "The manifest was changed at 7:42 this morning," she said. "Your seat wasn't originally assigned to you, was it?" I shook my head. "I changed it last minute. I wanted an aisle seat." "That change triggered a flag," she said quietly. "Whoever arranged the drop didn't expect you to be the one sitting there. You took the seat of the intended courier." The words hit me like turbulence. "So they were targeting someone else?" "Yes," Alyssa said. "And whoever planned it realized too late that you'd replace them. That's when your sister's name appeared in the delivery log." I felt something between disbelief and nausea. "Megan?" "She authorized the shipment to be billed under your ID," Alyssa said. "Digital trail and all. You're a perfect scapegoat, military clearance, access to logistics systems, no reason to be suspected." I stared at the hard drive inside the case. For a second, I didn't even feel angry. Just cold. "She hates me," I said quietly, "because I filed a complaint about Helix last year." Alyssa nodded. "We think she's helping a group inside the company move restricted designs to private contractors. We've been tracking them, but your name just made it personal for them." "Great," I muttered. Family loyalty at its finest. A small, humorless smile flickered on her face. "We're not charging you with anything, Captain, but we need your cooperation." I exhaled slowly. "You'll get it." "Not." They left me alone for a while after that. The room was silent, except for the hum of the air vent. I thought about Megan, how she used to build model planes with me when we were kids, how she cried when I enlisted, how proud she'd sounded when I got promoted. Somewhere between childhood and now, we'd switch sides without realizing it. When the door opened again, Alyssa came back in with 2 cups of coffee. "Sorry, it's airport coffee. Not great." I took it anyway. "I'm assuming you don't believe I'm involved." "If I did," she said, "you'd be in handcuffs right now." I let out a bitter laugh. Comforting. She sat across from me, leaning forward. "Your sister's office was raided an hour ago. She wasn't there. Her phone's off. But one of her interns, Evan Blake, was supposed to deliver a package to a passenger named Dylan Cole. Does that name ring a bell?" "No," I said. "But I saw a guy in a black jacket sitting near the emergency exit. He kept checking the overhead bin." "That's him." Alyssa said. He's already in custody. He claims he didn't know what was in the bag, but he did mention your sister by name. Of course he did, I said. She made sure I'd take the fall if anything went wrong. Alyssa studied me carefully. She knew you'd be on that flight? I texted her when I booked it, I said. She even joked about picking me up from the airport. Then she knew exactly which flight to use, Alyssa said quietly. I stared down at the hard drive again, my reflection warped in the silver surface. Every instinct told me to compartmentalize, to think like an officer, not a sister. But that part of me wasn't winning. Alyssa stood. FBI is taking over the case. You'll need to give a full statement, but I want you to be prepared. If your sister's involved, this isn't going to stay contained to just Helix Dynamics. What do you mean? I asked. Someone at the company authorized funding for a project under a military shell account, she said. It looks like internal sabotage, not just data theft. Sabotage? I repeated. Alyssa nodded. They were building something classified. We just don't know what. But whoever's behind it wanted you to take the blame when it disappeared. I rubbed my temples. Perfect. Frame your sister, ruin a military record, and cover up a federal crime all at once. She sighed. We'll get to the bottom of it. But first, you need to stay quiet about this. No contact with your sister. No statements to anyone. I stared at the cup of coffee. She's not just my sister, Agent Grant. She's the only family I've got left. Alyssa's voice softened. Then you already know how dangerous that makes her. Somewhere in the distance, an announcement called for boarding on another flight to Boston. I didn't move. I wasn't sure if I'd ever get on another plane again, at least not without checking every tag twice. The napkin was still in my pocket, folded neatly, blue ink smeared from my thumb. It was the ugliest, most important piece of paper I'd ever been handed, and I was starting to think it wasn't just a warning, it was a countdown that had already begun. The next morning, the air inside the hotel room felt stale, like it hadn't been opened in weeks. My phone was buzzing non-stop, blocked numbers, unknown IDs, random messages that vanished as soon as I tried to open them. I turned it off and stared at the ceiling. Sleep had been impossible. My thoughts kept looping back to the same image, the napkin, the warning, and Megan's name printed on that shipping log. At 7 sharp, there was a knock. Alyssa stood in the doorway, wearing a plain blazer and holding a tablet. Her tone was clipped, but calm. Captain Reed, pack your things. We're moving. I grabbed my bag without asking where. When someone from Homeland Security tells you to move, you move. We rode in silence for a while, the morning traffic inching forward. The world outside looked the same: coffee shops, joggers, sunlight, but my world had cracked open overnight. Alyssa finally spoke. FBI wants you back at LAX. They recovered a second package from the plane. You need to confirm something. My stomach tightened. A second package? She nodded. Same shipping label. Same false manifest. But the tracking code traces directly to Helix Dynamics. Someone used your clearance to move military-grade encryption drives off base. Someone meaning Megan, I said flatly. She's not the only suspect, Alyssa replied. But she's the one who had access to your credentials. We pulled into a restricted lot behind the terminal. The agents were already waiting, badges flashing, radios crackling, the quiet chaos of an active investigation. They escorted us inside a hangar converted into a command post. On a table near the center sat a carry-on bag. My name tag was taped across the handle. An agent opened it carefully, revealing a compartment that had been surgically modified: false bottom, insulated lining, barely visible seams. Inside, another hard drive rested in a foam casing, identical to the one from yesterday. I stepped closer. That's not mine. We know, the lead agent said. We're tracing fingerprints now. You want to guess whose we found on the outer zipper? I didn't answer. He didn't need me to. Megan Reed, he said. The room spun slightly. For a second, all I could think of was Megan's face when we were kids, how she used to sneak into my room and hide my Air Force medals just to make me mad. She used to laugh when I chased her around the house. Now she was planting evidence to ruin my life. Alyssa handed me a printout. Your sister's work computer was wiped remotely last night at 3:14 a.m. That's after she went off-grid. Whoever she's working with knows we're onto them. I exhaled sharply. So she's running. Or being run, Alyssa said. Helix has connections to 3 defense subcontractors. We believe one of them is funneling classified schematics overseas. The courier Dylan Cole was meant to deliver the drives midair to an embedded contact. When your name appeared on the manifest, they had to improvise. The agent across the table leaned in. Which means your sister may have realized the operation was compromised and used you to deflect attention. Great, I muttered. Family scapegoat plan, phase 2. Nobody laughed. Alyssa walked around the table, lowering her voice. Lauren, I need you to think carefully. Did your sister ever mention someone named Keller? Or a project called Sparrow Frame? I frowned. No, why? She flipped her tablet around. The screen showed a schematic, some kind of aircraft component. We found encrypted references to a Sparrow Frame prototype. It's an experimental flight control algorithm under Air Force contract. You had clearance to the logistics side, but the design data came from Helix. My pulse quickened. If that data leaks, every drone in that system becomes hackable. Exactly, Alyssa said. And someone tried to move it under your name. The agent closed the bag. We're transporting this to Quantico. You'll stay under federal protection until we locate your sister. I looked him straight in the eye. You won't find her if she doesn't want to be found. Megan's smarter than people give her credit for. He shrugged. Smart doesn't matter when we freeze the accounts. Alyssa cut in before he could continue. We'll handle the search. I'll brief you in the car. We left the hangar, the sound of engines and radios fading behind us. Alyssa drove this time fast, confident, like she'd done it 1,000 times. After a few miles, she said, There's something else. The FBI intercepted a message from an encrypted channel linked to Helix's internal network. It was addressed to you. I felt my chest tighten. To me? She nodded and passed me her phone. The message was short. You never learned when to stop following orders. This time, it'll cost you. No signature. But I didn't need one. I knew that phrasing. Megan used to say that when we fought. I'd quote regulations. She'd mock me for being a robot in uniform. I handed the phone back. She's taunting me. Alyssa glanced at me. Or, warning you. We didn't talk after that. The highway blurred past, and my mind drifted back to the night before I enlisted. Megan had begged me not to go. She said the military would eat me alive. She was wrong. It hadn't eaten me, it had built me. It taught me control, patience, structure, all the things she hated. But now, sitting in that car, I wondered if she'd been preparing for this all along, watching how I operated, learning how to use my precision against me. When we reached the federal field office downtown, everything felt louder, phones ringing, boots clacking, printers running nonstop. Agents moved with purpose, every step part of a silent clock ticking towards something big. A tech analyst handed Alyssa a folder. We finished decrypting part of the manifest. Now. She flipped through the pages, scanning fast. Lauren, come here. The document listed shipments over the past 6 months, all under varying aliases but traced to the same billing account, mine. Each entry corresponded with internal Helix transfers Megan had approved. She'd been building this trail for months, one shipment at a time, slowly aligning my name with her black operations. She planned this, I said. Alyssa's jaw tightened. And she almost got away with it. And the analyst spoke up. There's more. One of the encrypted drives had a hidden message file. Looks personal. He handed Alyssa a flash drive. She plugged it into a secure terminal. The audio that played was faint, distorted, but unmistakable. Megan's voice. If you're hearing this, then you already figured it out. Don't act like a victim, Lauren. You made your choice when you turned me in. I told you once, family loyalty isn't about rules. It's about survival. And you picked the wrong side. N for 7. My throat went dry. The room felt colder with every word. Alyssa muted the playback and looked at me carefully. This wasn't spontaneous. She's been planning it since your report. I forced a bitter laugh. Guess I really taught her attention to detail. Nobody said anything for a while. The hum of computers filled the silence. Finally, Alyssa spoke again. There's an operation tonight. FBI's raiding Helix Dynamics. We'll see if she shows up to clean up her mess. Now. I nodded automatically, but my brain was still replaying that recording, every syllable laced with accusation. Megan didn't sound angry. She sounded justified. As agents started preparing tactical gear, Alyssa leaned closer. Stay close to me tonight. No hero moves. I looked at her. You think she'll be there? Her tone was grim. If she isn't, she'll make sure we think she was. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere in the distance. Even though the sky was clear, the noise vibrated faintly against the window glass. Alyssa didn't react. Neither did I. Because both of us knew something was about to break, and it wasn't the weather. The command center smelled like burnt coffee and adrenaline. Dozens of agents were gearing up, checking weapons, earpieces, and tactical vests. Screens along the far wall displayed live feeds from drones circling the Helix Dynamics campus. Every corner of the place looked sterile and expensive, exactly the kind of company that thought they were too smart to get caught. Alyssa stood beside me, scanning her tablet while coordinating with the FBI strike team. Her voice was calm but clipped. We'll hit all 3 wings simultaneously. R&D first, then data servers, then executive offices. If your sister's anywhere on site, she won't have time to run. I kept my arms crossed, my focus locked on the feed. You're assuming she'll be there. Megan's too careful. She's not the type to wait around for handcuffs. Alyssa gave me a side glance. She's also arrogant. She'll want to see what happens when the trap she built finally springs. That part sounded more accurate. Megan never did anything quietly. The ops commander briefed the team, his tone matter-of-fact. Helix Dynamics is suspected of transferring defense technology classified under the Sparrow Frame program. Targets include encrypted servers, prototype blueprints, and internal correspondences. Expect resistance from private security, some of them are former military. The room shifted instantly into motion. No shouting, no dramatic countdowns, just pure, practiced coordination. Alyssa nodded at me once. Stay behind me, follow instructions, and don't make me regret letting you in this room. Wouldn't dream of it, I said. She smirked just slightly. That's what worries me. End quote. The convoy rolled out just after sundown. Black SUVs in tight formation. No sirens, no lights. The road ahead was wet from a passing drizzle, city lights reflecting off the asphalt like ghosts of traffic long gone. I sat in the second vehicle with Alyssa and 2 field agents, staring out the window at the blurred glow of Los Angeles disappearing behind us. She briefed me quietly. Helix uses biometric access. Megan's credentials are still active. If she's on site, she either hasn't realized we're coming or she wants us to find her. Knowing her, it's both, I said. We arrived at the complex in Torrance just after 9. The place looked deserted from the outside. No lights, no guards at the gate. But that only meant they'd prepared. Alyssa gave a hand signal. The first team breached the front lobby. A second team flanked through the loading dock. My pulse was steady, but every nerve felt electric. Inside, the halls were quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence you get when people already know they've been compromised. Alyssa's radio crackled. R&D sector clear. Moving to data core. She motioned to me. Stay sharp. We followed the team through a corridor, lined with glass offices. Papers scattered across desks. Coffee still warm in mugs. Someone had left in a hurry. Then, halfway down the hall, an elevator door opened with a soft chime. A man stepped out, middle-aged, Helix badge on his chest, hands trembling slightly. Sir, stay where you are, Alyssa ordered. He raised his hands. I'm just it. I don't know anything. Alyssa motioned for an agent to secure him, but he blurted out before they could move. She told us to shut everything down, said it was a false alarm. Then she locked herself in the sub-level server room. Who? Alyssa asked. The man swallowed hard. Megan Reed. My throat tightened. Alyssa didn't miss a beat. Take us there. The IT guy hesitated, then nodded quickly. This way. We moved through a restricted wing that looked more like a bunker than an office, thick walls, reinforced doors, cameras in every corner. My boots echoed against the polished floor, the sound too loud in the stillness. When we reached the elevator to the sublevel, Alyssa punched the button. The doors opened, revealing another keypad. The IT guy typed a code, hands shaking so hard he hit the wrong number twice. Alyssa's patience snapped. Step aside. She jammed a bypass tool into the lock. The door dinged open, and we descended. The sublevel felt colder, metallic, humming with the sound of servers. Blue light from the racks painted the corridor like a sci-fi movie, except this was very real. A voice echoed from down the hall. You shouldn't have come here, Lauren. It was Megan. Every hair on my neck stood up. I stepped forward slowly, my heart hammering. She stood near the far server column, wearing black slacks and a Helix badge. Calm, composed, like she was waiting for a meeting, not a federal raid. "You look good," she said, smirking faintly. "Stress suits you." "Cut the act," I said. "You framed me. You used my clearance to move classified tech. You've destroyed everything you touched." Her tone stayed even. "You think you're the hero here? You filed that complaint knowing it would kill my career. You didn't even ask why I did it." "Because you were greedy," I shot back. "Because I was surviving," she said. "You sit in your perfect uniform, following orders like a machine, but I'm the one who saw what was happening. Do you even know what Sparrow Frame is?" Alyssa moved up beside me. "We know enough." Megan ignored her. "They're not building control systems, Lauren. They're building autonomous strike units. AI that can make kill decisions without human oversight. And when I found out, I tried to leak it. You think I wanted to sell it? I wanted to stop it." I hesitated. "You're lying." She shook her head. "Helix didn't just overbill the Air Force. They built weapons off the books. The files I sent out were proof. You called it treason, but you didn't understand what they'd already done." Alyssa's voice cut through. "That doesn't excuse framing your sister and endangering civilians." Megan smiled faintly. "You think you're the good guys? You're protecting the same system that funds this nightmare. I just changed the target." Before anyone could respond, a piercing alarm erupted from the servers. Red lights flashed overhead. The IT guy behind us shouted, "She triggered a purge." Alyssa grabbed her radio. "All units, data wipe in progress. Containment now." And agents moved fast, unplugging drives, yanking cables, sealing crates. Megan didn't move. She just stared at me like she'd already won. "I didn't want it to end like this," she said softly, "but you left me no choice." The security door behind her slammed shut automatically, locking with a metallic hiss. She backed toward the control console, eyes glinting. "When they read the reports, they'll see your name, not mine. You'll be the scapegoat for every secret they wanted buried." "Now." I lunged forward, but Alyssa caught my arm. "Don't!" she hissed. "Megan!" I yelled. She looked back one last time. "Tell Mom I did something real." Then she hit the command. The monitors exploded into static. Every file, every drive, every trace of data vanished in seconds. The red lights turned to blue again, the hum of the servers fading into silence. Alyssa stormed forward, punching in override codes, but the system was gone. Every piece of evidence that tied Helix or Megan to Sparrow Frame had been wiped clean. The agents were shouting over the radios. "Purge complete. Target escaped through maintenance tunnel." I ran forward, but Alyssa grabbed me again. "Lauren, stop, she's gone." I stared at the empty corridor where Megan had disappeared, the hum of the servers echoing like a heartbeat that had finally stopped. For a long second, no one moved. Then Alyssa looked at the dead monitors and muttered. She didn't just erase the data. She erased the trail. And standing there in the cold blue light, I realized she might have erased me too. The next 48 hours felt like being trapped inside a courtroom that never ended. Every question was a test, every silence an accusation. The FBI had moved me to a secure facility outside D.C. And from the minute I arrived, I knew I wasn't just a witness anymore. They were deciding whether to make me the face of the entire disaster. The interrogation room looked exactly like the movies. Steel table, 2 chairs, 1 camera in the corner. The man sitting across from me wasn't some rookie agent either. He was polished, measured, wearing a suit that screamed Washington money. His badge read S.A.R. Donovan. He spoke like he already knew all the answers. "Captain Reed," he began, sliding a folder toward me. "You understand why you're here?" I stared at the folder. My name was printed on every page. "Because my sister destroyed your evidence and made it look like I helped her." Donovan tilted his head. "You were the one who filed the complaint against Helix Dynamics. You had motive to bring them down." I clenched my jaw. That complaint was about financial misconduct. I didn't know they were hiding an entire weapons program. "End of treat. Maybe you knew more than you think." He opened the folder. Inside were photos from the Helix raid, the servers, the purge drives, even my own face captured on a surveillance camera. "You had top-level access to Sparrow Frame's logistics stream. You could have extracted the files yourself. I leaned forward. Do I look like I need to smuggle tech through a civilian airline? You think I risked my career, my clearance, for what? To make my sister rich? He didn't flinch. We think you might have been manipulated. Or coerced. By her? I said, laughing dryly. She's been manipulating people since we were 5. You can't be coerced by someone you stopped trusting a decade ago. Donovan studied me for a few seconds before shutting the folder. Your sister's disappearance complicates things. Without her, we can't confirm your level of involvement. I already told you everything I know. He stood, straightening his tie. Then we'll start again tomorrow. I, too. The door clicked behind him. Alyssa was waiting outside in the hall, arms folded. She'd changed out of her field gear and looked like she hadn't slept either. He's trying to get a read on you, she said. Oh, I noticed. He's got the empathy of a vending machine. She half smiled. That's his charm. We walked down the hallway together. Agents passed us, carrying boxes of evidence and laptops. Everyone moved with that mixture of exhaustion and obsession that only federal work creates. Alyssa led me into a small briefing room filled with digital boards and case files. She pointed to one on the far wall. We've reconstructed fragments of the deleted Helix data. Most of it's junk, but one file survived the purge. The screen showed a schematic labeled SPFAILINK Provisional Core. I frowned. That's part of the Sparrow Frame control interface. Exactly. It's a partial design for an autonomous target recognition system. Megan must have kept a local backup. We traced it to a secure Helix cloud key, one she created under your name 6 months ago. She set me up long before I even reported her. Alyssa nodded. This wasn't revenge on impulse. This was methodical. She planted breadcrumbs that would survive any investigation. I stared at the glowing diagram on the screen. How many people would have had access to that code? Less than 10. But most of them report to a man named Harlan Voss, Helix's chief operations director. Megan transferred her files directly to him 2 weeks before the leak attempt. Does Voss know where she is? Alyssa's expression hardened. He's not talking. But his private jet landed in Nevada yesterday, an unscheduled trip. We're watching him. I sank into a chair. So she's working with a guy who bankrolls defense contracts and vanishes when things go wrong. Perfect company. Alyssa sat across from me. We're still missing her motive. She says she wanted to expose corruption, but she's been working with people who profit from it. That contradiction doesn't make sense. Oh, it does, I said quietly. She doesn't care who wins, as long as she gets to watch me lose. Alyssa leaned back, eyes narrowing. You really think this is about you? Yes, I said flatly. Megan's the kind of person who turns pain into fuel. She's been waiting years for a chance to prove she's smarter than me. If I hadn't filed that report, she would have found another way to burn the bridge. The room went quiet for a moment, then the intercom buzzed. Donovan's voice echoed through the speaker. Read. My office. Now. Alyssa exhaled. He's not done pushing. I walked back down the hall, already bracing for another round. Donovan was standing by the window, watching the city skyline. Sit down, Captain. He didn't look at me when he spoke. We've been decrypting Megan's personal communications. Found something you should hear. He pressed play on a recording. It was Megan's voice again. Calm, steady, deliberate. Lauren won't run. She never does. She believes in rules. That's why she's predictable. And predictable people are easy to destroy. The recording clicked off. Donovan turned toward me. That message was sent to an unknown contact 3 days before the flight. She wasn't improvising. She planned this entire sequence. Your seat, your bag, the timing, everything. And I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice level. So now you believe me? I believe she's dangerous, he said. But the Bureau still needs leverage. And you're it. Meaning what? He closed the blinds. You're the only person she'll talk to. When she surfaces, you'll be the bait. I stared at him. You want me to lure my sister out? Yes, he said plainly. She's communicating through dead channels, bouncing off outdated Helix servers. But she always pings one node, every 72 hours probably to check for surveillance. We'll feed her a message that looks like it's from you. What kind of message? One that sounds desperate. Alyssa entered mid-conversation, holding a tablet. The NSA just confirmed a signal from one of Helix's off-grid facilities. It's in New Hampshire. Remote. No network footprint except that same 72-hour pulse. Donovan nodded. That's where she'll go next. I looked between them. You want me to send her something personal? Alyssa met my eyes. If she thinks you're broken, she'll come to finish it. I folded my arms. And if she's not the one checking those nodes? Donovan didn't hesitate. Then we catch whoever is. The silence stretched until Alyssa spoke again. We'll craft the message. You just need to record the voice clip. I felt the weight of that request sit in my chest like a stone. I'd given orders before combat extractions, airlifts, rescues, but this wasn't strategy. This was baiting blood. They handed me the mic. Alyssa hit record. I took a breath, forcing my voice to steady. Megan, I'm done fighting. You win. Whatever you wanted to prove, you proved it. I just want to talk. One last time. The light on the recorder blinked off. Donovan listened once, then nodded. Perfect. Upload it. As the agents dispersed, Alyssa lingered. You okay? I gave her a half smile. I just recorded an invitation for my sister to finish what she started. Sure, I'm great. She didn't laugh. Just remember she's not the only one watching. I sat there for a while after they left, staring at the empty chair across from me. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, faint but constant. Somewhere in that sound, my brain replayed Megan's voice from the recording, steady, confident, unafraid. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. Tired of being the good one, the reliable one, the soldier who always cleaned up other people's chaos. And when the clock on the wall hit midnight, I knew the signal had already been sent. Somewhere out there, my sister had heard my voice again, and whatever she decided next, she wouldn't keep me waiting long. The call came in at 3:14 a.m., exactly 72 hours after the signal was sent. I wasn't asleep. I'd been sitting on the edge of the bed for hours, watching the clock tick toward that moment. Alyssa had warned me it might take days, but Megan was never late for anything she planned. When the phone buzzed, I already knew who it was. The screen flashed, unknown caller. My chest tightened. I hit answer. Hello, Lauren. Her voice was calm, unhurried, like she was calling to catch up over coffee. But I could hear a faint echo, the hollow sound of a large, empty room somewhere isolated. You got my message, I said evenly. I always get your messages, she replied. You were easy to find. You always leave breadcrumbs, just like when you tattled on me to the Air Force. I gritted my teeth. You framed me for espionage, Megan. I think we're past the sibling squabble phase. She laughed softly. You really don't get it, do you? You're still thinking like a soldier. Orders, loyalty, chain of command. The world doesn't work like that anymore. End of Clee. You mean the world where you sell military AI to private contractors? That world, she said, is the only one still paying attention. You think the Air Force stopped the Sparrowframe project after I leaked it? No. They buried it, changed the name, kept funding it. They'll keep building machines that kill faster than we can blink, and no one will question it because it's wrapped in patriotism. Her words cut deep because part of me knew she wasn't wrong. I'd seen enough classified programs to know that morality and military spending rarely shook hands. But Megan wasn't fighting for justice, she was fighting to win. Where are you? I asked. She chuckled. Oh, I'll tell you eventually. But first, let's talk about why you're suddenly pretending to care. The great Captain Reed finally learned how to break the rules. This isn't about rules, I said quietly. This is about family. Family? She repeated, the word dripping with disdain. You stopped being my family when you signed that report. You could have protected me. You chose them. I chose integrity, I snapped. You were committing fraud, Megan. You were stealing from the government and hiding behind Helix's name. I was exposing corruption, she shot back. You just couldn't see past your damn uniform. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with static and guilt. I could hear faint typing on her end, maybe keystrokes on a laptop. She was working while she talked, multitasking her betrayal like it was just another day in the office. Alyssa stood in the doorway of my hotel suite, eyes fixed on me. She didn't say a word but mouthed, "Stall her." I kept my voice steady. You really think you're doing the right thing? You almost got hundreds of people killed on that flight. I didn't plant that device, she said immediately. That was Voss. He panicked. When he realized the wrong passenger was in that seat, he tried to erase the problem. You expect me to believe that? I don't expect you to believe anything, Megan said. But if you want proof, check the Helix, Nevada site. They moved the Sparrow frame prototype there last week. You'll find Voss's fingerprints all over it. He's building something worse than AI weapons now. He's building control. Control of what? Of people, she said softly. Predictive behavior algorithms. Military-grade profiling. They're feeding real soldier data into it: deployment records, psychological evaluations, biometric tracking. You're in those files, Lauren. Every decision you've ever made, every flight, every mission. You're not the only one they turned into a weapon. A chill crawled up my spine. You're saying Helix is using military personnel as test subjects? I'm saying they already did. Alyssa's hand clenched into a fist. She mouthed again. Keep her talking. Megan, listen to me. You're in over your head. You think you're controlling this, but you're being used. Voss isn't on your side. He never was. That's rich, she said. You accusing me of blind loyalty. Tell me, does it bother you that your spotless record is the reason I could forge your credentials? You made it easy for me. You were predictable, perfect. You always are. Her tone shifted suddenly, softer but sharper. You want to stop me? Come find me. I'll even give you a hint. Look for the place where the stars disappear. Then the line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. Alyssa moved forward. She's taunting you. She's challenging me, I said. That phrase, where the stars disappear. It's something Dad used to say when we camped in Death Valley. No light pollution, no horizon, just darkness. Alyssa nodded. Helix has a decommissioned testing site 2 hours north of there. Satellite imagery shows increased power output last week. I grabbed my jacket. Then that's where she is. Alyssa stepped in front of me. You're not going anywhere without backup. I'm not waiting for a bureaucracy to approve a field op, I said. She's my sister. She'll run if she sees a convoy. Alyssa stared at me, measuring the risk, then finally sighed. Fine, but I'm driving. We left before dawn, heading east on an empty highway. The desert stretched endlessly, pale light creeping over the horizon. The air smelled like dust and gasoline. Neither of us talked for the first hour. Then Alyssa finally broke the silence. You know she's not going to surrender. I know. And if she's right about Helix? Then this goes deeper than both of us, I said. But first I need to look her in the eye. Alyssa kept her gaze on the road. You sound like you're planning something. I'm planning to end this. We drove another 30 miles before we saw it. The Helix test compound, hidden behind a ridge of sandstone cliffs. It looked abandoned from a distance. Rusted gates, collapsed fencing, no visible guards. But the closer we got, the more alive it felt. Security cameras tracked our car as we approached, their lenses shifting like mechanical eyes. Alyssa slowed the vehicle. Thermals picking up 3 heat signatures inside. One of them matches your sister's profile. Oh? I tightened my grip on the door handle. Then let's go say hello. The gate opened by itself, with a low groan. Alyssa shot me a wary glance but drove through. Inside, the facility was quiet except for the hum of generators. A faint blue glow pulsed from the main hangar ahead. Alyssa parked behind a concrete barrier, and we got out carefully. The desert wind carried a smell of ozone, faint but distinct, the smell of high-voltage machinery. Alyssa checked her weapon. You sure you're ready for this? I gave a humorless smile. You ever stop being ready for family? We moved toward the hangar doors. They were half open, a thin line of light spilling through. I could hear faint voices. One of them was Megan's. The other I didn't recognize. Male, confident, probably Voss. We crept closer, our footsteps echoing off the concrete. Inside, I could see Megan standing near a massive console surrounded by racks of servers. The man beside her was typing commands, lines of code streaming across a dozen screens. Megan's voice was sharp. You said the purge would erase everything. Why is the system still active? Voss didn't look up. It's self-learning. You can't erase an algorithm that's already rewritten itself. Alyssa whispered, Jesus Christ. It's live AI. I stepped forward before she could stop me. Megan! Her head snapped toward me. Shock flickered across her face for half a second, then melted into something else. Resolve. You shouldn't have come here, she said. Yeah, I said, taking another step. I'm starting to hear that a lot lately. The hum of the machines grew louder, lights flickering across the servers like a pulse. Voss turned, smiling thinly. Well, the family reunion's right on schedule. Alyssa raised her gun. Step away from the console. He laughed. You have no idea what's already in motion. I'll report. Megan didn't move. She just stared at me, torn between fury and fear. And in that instant, I knew the system wasn't just running, it was learning from us. Every word, every movement, every betrayal. The hum of the servers grew louder, almost rhythmic, like the sound of something alive breathing through wires. Alyssa's weapon stayed trained on Voss, but her eyes flicked toward the screens. They were flashing data so fast it looked like static strings of text, coordinates, names, and a red header that read, SPF, AI, active neural simulation running. Megan took a small step backward from the console. Her face was pale under the blue light, and for the first time, she looked unsure. Voss, she said, her voice steady but low, you told me it couldn't run without the military core key. You said it needed the classified sequence from the Air Force system. Hower. Voss didn't even turn around. It doesn't anymore. That's what self-learning means, sweetheart. Turn it off, she ordered. He smirked. If I turn it off now, we lose the demonstration. You wanted the world to see what the Pentagon's been building well. Congratulations. You're about to see it think for itself. Alyssa moved closer, gun raised. Step away from the console. Now. Voss turned, raising his hands mockingly. You're too late. It's already linked to the network. Even if you kill me, it'll finish running the sequence. I glanced at the screen again. The AI's process log was pulling live data from somewhere: names, ranks, flight records. I felt the air in my lungs freeze. Those are Air Force personnel files, I said. It's mapping our entire chain of command. Voss shrugged. That's what it's designed for. Prediction modeling, real-time loyalty profiling. You should be proud, Captain. Your data was the first one uploaded. You're the template. I felt my stomach turn. He was right. Megan had stolen my credentials months ago. That meant she'd given the AI the perfect psychological baseline for a compliant soldier. Alyssa fired a warning shot that hit the metal wall beside Voss's head. I said, step away. He didn't flinch. You can't shoot the truth, Agent Grant. Megan suddenly lunged forward, slamming her hand against the emergency override switch. Sparks burst from the console, and the lights flickered violently. The hum became a roar, like static screaming through the air. What did you do? I shouted. She yelled back, I'm stopping it before it finishes compiling. But the screens didn't go dark, they changed. The text stopped scrolling and reformed into a single sentence across every monitor. Is greater than sequence locked. Target. Megan Reed. The color drained from her face. No, that's not right. Voss laughed. You built the leak trigger into the core. It thinks you're the threat now. That's the beauty of autonomous logic. It doesn't take sides. It eliminates the highest risk variable. Alyssa grabbed my arm. We need to shut down power. I nodded and sprinted toward the back wall, where the main breakers were mounted. My fingers shook as I flipped the first two levers. Nothing happened. The hum kept growing louder. Megan! I shouted. It's still drawing power from somewhere else. She was frantically typing on the console. It's on a backup loop, an external server cluster. Voss mirrored it. He smiled proudly. Can't have progress without redundancy. I moved fast, ripping open a floor panel and yanking a bundle of fiber cables from the trunk line. The monitors flickered, then one by one went black. The hum softened, but a single red light stayed on in the center of the main console. Alyssa aimed again. That light better go out in 10 seconds or you do. Voss raised an eyebrow. Shoot me, and you'll never find the physical servers. This place is just the terminal. The real data's buried in the Nevada uplink, right under Nellis Air Force Base. I froze. You're lying. He grinned. Am I? Alyssa's radio buzzed before she could respond. Tactical teams in position. A voice crackled. Ready for breach in 60 seconds. She responded sharply. Negative. Hostiles inside, system unstable. Contain perimeter only. Copy, came the reply. Megan stepped away from the console, breathing hard. You don't understand, Alyssa. If those files reach the Air Force mainframe, Sparrowframe won't just profile soldiers. It'll rewrite their operational directives. It'll turn every classified mission into an autonomous feedback loop. No human oversight. Alyssa turned to me. Is that even possible? I nodded grimly. If it has real-time behavioral data from the field, yes. It could simulate commands before they're issued. It wouldn't need people anymore. The red light blinked faster. A timer appeared on the wall screen. Uplink in progress, 2 minutes. Voss chuckled under his breath. Looks like we're past the point of negotiation. Alyssa moved, striking him hard across the jaw with the butt of her pistol. He hit the floor, coughing blood. That's for trying to kill 300 people on Flight 472, she said. He spat, smiling through it. Still alive, though, aren't you? Megan slammed a drive into the side of the console, typing commands so fast her fingers blurred. I can redirect it. If I can isolate the signal, I can send it to a dead relay instead of the base. How long? I asked. 60 seconds. Alyssa shouted toward the door. Team Bravo, breach now! The door exploded inward as agents stormed in. Weapons raised, dust and sparks filled the air. Megan didn't even look up. Her focus was absolute. Sweat rolled down her temple. Almost there. Almost. A gunshot cracked through the noise. For a second, everything froze. Voss had pulled a hidden pistol from his jacket, but Alyssa was faster. Her shot hit him clean through the chest. He staggered, collapsing beside the console. His hand twitched once, then went still. Megan didn't stop typing. The screen flashed one last time, redirect confirmed, relay null, and then everything went dark. The generators shut off. The hum died. The red light finally went out. The silence that followed was suffocating. I looked at Megan, her hands trembling, face pale. You did it, I said quietly. She gave a hollow laugh. Don't congratulate me yet. It only worked because the relay burned itself out. I bought us time, not peace. Alyssa holstered her gun and stepped forward, breathing heavily. You saved a lot of lives tonight, but you're still under arrest. Megan looked at her, then at me. You think this ends with me in a cell? You really believe the Air Force won't just rebuild this? You'll lock me up while they use my work anyway. I met her eyes. You had a choice, Megan. You could have done this the right way. She shook her head slowly. The right way doesn't exist anymore. Before anyone could respond, one of the agents shouted from the entrance. We've got movement outside. Multiple vehicles approaching fast. Alyssa snapped to command mode instantly. Seal the doors. Get defensive position. Gunfire erupted from beyond the gate. Sparks danced across the concrete. Whoever was coming wasn't local security. Megan's eyes widened. That's not Helix, they're coming to erase everything, including us. The next blast shook the building, sending a shower of dust from the ceiling. Alyssa raised her weapon, shouting over the chaos. Lauren, get her to cover. I grabbed Megan's arm, pulling her behind a stack of crates. She didn't fight me this time. Her breath was ragged, her eyes darting to the flickering emergency lights. This is what I was trying to stop, she said, voice cracking. You don't understand, the AI isn't the weapon anymore. It's the excuse. The walls trembled again, as another explosion rocked the far side of the hangar. Alyssa fired back through the doorway. Who the hell are they? Megan whispered. The people who funded both sides. And deporting though, the sound of tires screeched outside, and I realized with a sinking feeling that whatever came through those gates wasn't here to negotiate. And for the first time since this all began, Megan and I were finally on the same side of the fight. Smoke poured through the shattered hangar doors, thick and metallic, carrying that familiar smell of cordite and burning insulation. The gunfire had stopped, but the ringing in my ears hadn't. My back was pressed against the concrete barrier, my weapon drawn, pulse racing. Alyssa crouched across from me, scanning the shadows through the faint haze of emergency lights. Outside, sirens wailed federal backup, finally responding to the chaos. But whoever had stormed the facility was already gone. They came fast, hit hard, and vanished like they'd rehearsed it. All they left behind were spent shell casings and a corpse that used to be Harland Voss. Alyssa's voice was low and steady. They weren't Helix security. Those were hired professionals. No insignias, no IDs. I nodded, still catching my breath. Private contractors. Probably working cleanup for whoever financed the project. Megan sat slumped against a wall nearby, wrists zip-tied, blood streaking down her arm from a cut. Her defiance had drained away, replaced by something colder, an acceptance I couldn't read. She looked at the carnage like she'd seen this ending coming all along. Alyssa approached her carefully. They wanted you dead too. You realize that? Megan gave a weak smile. I told you, they don't like loose ends. I moved closer. Then you should have stayed out of this. She met my eyes. You think you can still pretend this is about me? You saw what they were building, Lauren. You saw the data they pulled from your file. Every soldier, every pilot, every kill order, it's all stored, analyzed, and fed into a machine that learns how to replace you. You can't bury that now. Alyssa turned away, speaking quietly into her radio. Agent Grant, site secure, casualties confirmed. Request immediate medical and forensic teams. Static answered her. The comms were fried. She tried again, nothing. Megan tilted her head, almost amused. They jammed the signal, always 2 steps ahead. I crouched in front of her, voice low. Then stop playing cryptic genius and tell us what's coming next. She hesitated, then looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years, fear. They'll pivot the project. The AI's gone public now, at least internally. Sparrowframe isn't a leak anymore, it's leverage. The people behind Helix will use the chaos from tonight to demand more funding, more oversight power. Congress won't stop them. They'll reward them for preventing an attack. And your name will still be attached to it all. Alyssa turned back. She's right about one thing. Once this hits the chain of command, they'll make you the scapegoat again. That drive from LAX was the setup. This raid just sealed the narrative. I stood up slowly, the reality hitting me harder than any explosion. So they win either way. Megan's laugh was bitter. Welcome to my world. Alyssa motioned for 2 agents to escort her out, but I stopped them. Wait. She's still the only person who knows how deep this goes. Alyssa frowned. You want her protected? I want her alive, I said. At least until someone higher up admits what's really happening. Megan arched an eyebrow. Touching. You going to write that into your next report, Captain? Don't test me. She smiled faintly. Wasn't planning to. We exited the hangar as dawn crept across the desert. The compound looked worse in daylight bullet holes, shattered windows, scorched walls. The air reeked of ozone and diesel. Emergency vehicles finally arrived, sirens cutting through the morning quiet. A paramedic checked my shoulder for shrapnel. I waved him off. I'm fine. He gave me that look people give soldiers when they don't believe you but don't want to argue. Sure you are. Alyssa stood a few yards away, talking to a federal supervisor who'd just flown in. The conversation looked tense, lots of hand gestures and pointing at reports. She walked back over after a few minutes, her face unreadable. They're calling it a data breach, she said. Official story is rogue contractor, corporate espionage, minor casualties. No mention of AI, no mention of Sparrowframe. I laughed once, short and humorless. Minor casualties. Yeah, tell that to the people Voss had killed. They won't, Alyssa said. The higher-ups want this contained. You, me, and a few analysts will be the only ones with full clearance. Now, what about my sister? She's being transported to a federal holding facility, Alyssa said. Protective custody for now. I looked toward the convoy where Megan sat in the back seat of an armored SUV, head tilted toward the window. For a brief second, our eyes met. No hate, no smugness, just resignation. Then the car door shut, and she was gone. Alyssa spoke again, quieter now. You should know, Lauren, the data we recovered wasn't entirely destroyed. There's a backup fragment in the federal system. Someone uploaded it remotely during the raid. I turned to her. Who? She hesitated. We don't know yet. But whoever it was, they used your encryption key. The world seemed to tilt a little. That's impossible. My access was revoked. Apparently not. We stood in silence for a moment, the desert wind whipping around us. The sun was higher now, painting everything gold and red, like the earth itself was pretending nothing had happened. I finally spoke. So, I'm back to being the problem again. Alyssa gave a small shrug. You're the only one who's not pretending this didn't happen. That makes you dangerous. Great, I said. I've always wanted to be a liability. She cracked a faint smile. You're a terrible one. You think too much. A chopper thundered overhead, kicking up dust as it landed. Alyssa grabbed her files and nodded toward it. They want us at the field office for debriefing. And before you ask, yes, you're still under internal review. I followed her up the ramp. The noise inside the chopper was deafening, so we didn't talk. The blades beat out a rhythm that felt like a countdown. Every vibration seemed to echo one word in my head: unfinished. We landed outside Las Vegas 30 minutes later, at a small federal airfield. The hangar was already full of suits and analysts, all pretending to look busy. Someone handed me a tablet to sign off on my statement. It was a sanitized version of the truth, stripped of anything that mattered. I scrolled through the report. The part that made my blood run cold wasn't the lies, it was the footnote. Recovered data fragment confirmed. Designated Project Sparrowframe 2, reinstated under Department of Defense oversight. They hadn't buried it. They'd upgraded it. I looked over at Alyssa, who was scanning her own briefing papers. You see this? She nodded grimly. They moved the project to a new contractor. Not Helix this time. A company called Nemesis Technologies. I exhaled slowly. New name. Same poison. We were both silent for a while after that. The hum of servers from a nearby room carried through the walls, that same faint electronic drone I'd heard in the hangar. It made my skin crawl. Alyssa finally broke the silence. You've got two options. You can play along and keep your clearance, or you can dig deeper and burn every bridge left. Those aren't options, I said. That's just a polite way of saying pick your punishment. She looked up at me. Sometimes the only way to expose something is to walk straight into it. I met her eyes. And what happens if it exposes me first? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The room buzzed with low conversation, keyboards clicking, phones ringing. People moved around me like I wasn't there, just another asset to file away. And in that moment, watching the machinery of bureaucracy spin the story into something clean and palatable, I realized Megan had been right about one thing. No one ever stops the machine. They just learn how to stand in its shadow. I signed the report without reading the last page. My hand didn't shake. But somewhere deep inside, I knew I'd just signed more than a statement. I'd signed away the illusion that any of this could ever be fixed. The next week felt like being back in a war zone, except this time the firefight was made of paperwork, politics, and silence. They put me up in a secured military housing complex outside D.C., the kind where everything looks clean but smells like anxiety. The walls were beige, the furniture too new, and the cameras too obvious. I'd been through interrogations before, but never ones that smiled at me and offered coffee. Alyssa sat across the conference table, her blazer traded for a dark field jacket. She looked more like herself again, less bureaucrat, more operative. Between us was a thick binder stamped classified level for clearance only. They've officially pinned Voss as the primary architect of the breach, she said, flipping through the report. Helix Dynamics is being dismantled, and your sister's cooperation bought her a plea deal. Reduced sentence in exchange for full disclosure. I stared at the page but didn't read it. And what about the part where the program got resurrected under a new name? She sighed. Off the record, I fought to have that section included. They redacted it before it hit the official log. Sparrowframe 2 doesn't exist as far as the public is concerned. I gave a dry laugh. Perfect. Everyone sleeps better that way. Alyssa closed the binder. Look, Lauren, this isn't about public peace of mind. It's about containment. If people knew the government was experimenting with predictive command AI using live soldier data, it would collapse recruitment overnight. I leaned back in the chair, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. So they're saving the system by sacrificing the people in it. That's familiar. Don't make this harder than it has to be, she said. But her voice lacked conviction. I'm not making it harder, I said quietly. I'm just refusing to lie about it. Oh, she stared at me for a long second before speaking. You were a good officer, Lauren. You still can be. But if you go rogue on this, if you try to take this story public, they will destroy you. You'll be dishonorably discharged, discredited, erased. That's the cost of loyalty, right? I said. Serve the flag, not the truth. She exhaled, tired. No, it's serving the mission, not the noise. The meeting ended without resolution. It always did. I left the room with a manila folder and a gnawing pit in my stomach. Outside, the rain had started again, a cold, steady drizzle that made everything shine like polished gilt. Back in my assigned quarters, I tossed the folder on the table and stared at the digital clock blinking on the nightstand. I hadn't slept properly since the raid. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the red light blinking above Megan's name. My phone buzzed, a restricted number again. For a second, I almost ignored it. Then instinct won. I answered. Captain Reed. The voice was male, calm, formal. This is Major Donovan, Department of Defense Liaison. We're moving your sister to Fort Dawes tomorrow morning. She'll be under federal witness protection until the review is complete. Witness protection? I asked. She's not a civilian. She is now. She's no longer under court-martial jurisdiction. Federal case supersedes military command. I hesitated. Does she know? She's been informed. She requested to see you before transfer. That was the part I didn't expect. Megan didn't ask for things, she demanded them. Fine, I said. When and where? 0800. Facility B secured wing. The line went dead. By the time I reached the holding facility the next morning, the rain had turned into fog. The world outside the fence looked muted, blurred. Inside, fluorescent light made everything harsh again. Megan sat in a glass room, hands clasped on the table. She looked different, smaller somehow. Not fragile, just human. When I walked in, she didn't bother pretending to be surprised. Captain Reed, she said, mocking the title with a tired smirk. Or should I call you the government's favorite liability? Drop the sarcasm, I said. You asked for this meeting. She tilted her head. You always were direct. Good. Let's skip to it then. You're wondering why I saved you instead of letting Voss finish the upload. That crossed my mind. And of T. Her eyes flicked up, sharp and steady. Because you're the only one they'd believe if this story ever comes out. Not me, not Alyssa, you, the good soldier, the decorated pilot, the one who always did everything right. I frowned. If you're trying to make me feel guilty, you'll have to work harder. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, she said. I'm trying to make you use it. The files on Sparrow Frame 2, they're not locked. You can still access them through the Pentagon intranet. They left your clearance active because they think you're too broken to care. I stared at her, studying her expression. Why tell me this now? She leaned forward. Because I'm out of moves. They'll bury me in some safe house, maybe for life. But you still wear the uniform. You still have the illusion of choice. A guard knocked on the glass. Time was up. Megan looked back at me, her voice softening for the first time. You can't fix this from outside, Lauren. You'll have to burn it from within. Before I could respond, the door opened. The guard motioned for me to leave. I stood there for a moment, watching her, then turned away. Outside, Alyssa was waiting beside a black SUV. She had a cigarette between her fingers, though it wasn't lit. She get to you? She told me something useful, I said. That's what worries me. We drove back in silence, the city rolling past in muted gray. Every road sign, every checkpoint felt heavier than it should have. I could feel Alyssa watching me from the passenger seat, reading my face like a threat report. Finally, she said, if you're thinking about going after them again, don't. Not without a plan. I looked out the window. I thought you'd know me better than that. I do, she said. That's why I'm saying it. That night, I logged into the secure military network from my quarters. The access terminal hummed quietly, the same way it did in the Air Force Command Center. My old credentials still worked. She was right. The Sparrow Frame 2 project file appeared on screen, marked active. The system prompted a password override I didn't recognize, but underneath it was a familiar tag. User source, Reed, L. They were still using my data, still training the AI on my command simulations. For the first time since the flight, I felt something shift inside me, not fear, not anger, but clarity. The system wasn't broken. It was functioning exactly as designed. Alyssa called just after midnight. You're in the network, aren't you? I didn't deny it. She sighed. You can't just shut it down, Lauren. It's decentralized now. You destroy one server, 10 more boot up across the country. I don't plan to destroy it, I said. I plan to make it see the truth. You sound just like your sister. Maybe she was right about one thing. Silence on the line. Then Alyssa said, if you do this, there's no coming back. I glanced at the glowing screen, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. There's nothing left to come back to. The call ended. I stared at the login screen a long time, then began typing. Every soldier reaches a point where loyalty stops feeling like duty and starts feeling like debt. And tonight, I was done paying. The cursor blinked on the screen like a pulse, waiting for a command. My hand hovered above the keyboard. For the first time in months, there was no noise, no sirens, no gunfire, no shouting. Just the hum of the terminal and the faint sound of rain against the glass. The world outside the window was calm, unaware that the war had moved indoors, into the system itself. I typed my access code. The file tree expanded. Sparrow Frame 2. Project Continuity Protocol. Each line was a chain, each folder a locked vault. But buried inside one branch, under an old encrypted directory, I found something different, something human. Audio logs. The headers read, Command Reflection. Read. L. They'd recorded me. Every mission briefing, every after-action report, every private evaluation, my voice, my thoughts, my doubts, all fed into the AI. I clicked one. Captain Reed, Post-Operation Summary. Civilian extraction complete. Collateral 0. Request mission debrief at 0800. My own voice, calm and clipped, echoed through the speakers. Then the AI's synthesized tone replied, cold and flat. Evaluation complete. Efficiency rating, 94%. Emotional variance, minimal. Subject suitable for predictive model. I stared at the monitor, a sick feeling crawling through me. They hadn't just used my data, they'd replicated my judgment, my instincts, my voice. They'd made a weapon that could think like me without ever questioning orders. I opened the next file. It was Megan's. Subject read, M Intelligence Leak Analysis. Motivation, retaliation, predictive outcome, high success rate for ideological subversion. Emotional bias toward family loyalty remains exploitable variable. The AI had profiled her too. It had predicted her betrayal before it happened, maybe even shaped it. A chill ran down my spine. Megan wasn't just fighting the system, she was part of its test. I started typing commands to pull the root logs, overriding the authorization filters. Each file that opened made the truth sharper. The AI's core didn't belong to Helix or Nemesis. It was housed under the Department of Defense's Cognitive Combat Division. And its official directive wasn't about prediction. It was about replacement. Under primary objective, the line read, Phase 4, integrate Sparrowframe AI into active command structure to reduce human error and dissent. Reduce dissent. That's what they called conscience now. Alyssa's voice came through the intercom before I could go further. Lauren, step away from the console. I didn't move. How long have you known? Long enough to know you can't win this by sitting at a keyboard, she said. They're watching you. You log in again, they'll flag it as cyber intrusion. You'll be charged under the Espionage Act. I turned toward the speaker. They already used me as their blueprint. What's left to charge me for? A pause. Then, you don't understand. Sparrowframe 2 isn't just a program. It's running live commands right now. Units overseas are already using it for mission planning. You shut it down, and soldiers die. That's the excuse, I said. That's always the excuse. The door behind me clicked open. Alyssa stepped inside, rain dripping from her coat. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. You think this is simple? She said. It's not black and white anymore. You shut down the network, you cripple active operations. You expose it, you start a panic that'll destroy national security. I met her gaze. Then tell me what happens if I do nothing. Her silence said everything. I turned back to the screen. They built this to control people, not protect them. They'll feed it every decision, every mission, until it stops asking why humans exist in the chain of command at all. Alisa stepped closer. You want to take them down? Fine, but you do it smart. We gather evidence, build a case, leak it to people who can't be silenced. Like who? She hesitated. There's a Senate committee independent oversight. They're investigating defense tech abuses. If we hand them the files, they'll have to act. I laughed quietly. You still believe in oversight? You think politicians will destroy the same system that funds them? Her voice hardened. You're still a soldier, Lauren. Start acting like one. I stared at her, then at the screen, then back again. Every part of me wanted to believe there was still a line between justice and survival. But Megan's voice echoed in my head. You can't fix it from outside. You'll have to burn it from within. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Alyssa grabbed my arm. What are you doing? Not burning it, I said. Rewriting it. The command interface opened. I typed in a new instruction sequence, splicing into the live neural core. Alyssa's eyes widened as the code scrolled faster than she could follow. You're embedding a logic loop? I nodded. A truth clause. Every time the system makes a prediction, it'll be forced to evaluate the ethical outcome before executing. It'll start questioning itself. That'll cripple decision speed, she said. Good, I said. Maybe we could use a little hesitation. End quote. The system beeped twice, then displayed integrity loop accepted, recompiling core parameters. Alyssa exhaled shakily. You realize if this works, you just gave a machine a conscience. If it doesn't, I gave it confusion. Either way, they'll never trust it again. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The monitors flickered, then stabilized. The AI's voice returned, calm but softer somehow. Captain Reed, confirm directive modification. I looked at the screen. Confirmed. 1. Directive updated. Mission efficiency secondary to human preservation. Alyssa whispered, Holy hell, you actually did it. The lights dimmed slightly, and the terminal began shutting down one by one. It wasn't a crash, it was a choice. The system was taking itself offline. Then, as the last screen went dark, a faint voice came through the speaker, distorted but familiar. Megan's. Told you, big sister. Sometimes you have to break it to save it. I froze. The voice wasn't coming from the audio files, it was live. Alyssa caught it too, her eyes wide. She's in the system, she said. Megan's signal, it's bouncing through the satellite uplink. I swallowed hard. She embedded herself. Digital imprint, Alyssa said. She uploaded her consciousness as a failsafe. The static faded, but one final line came through. If they rebuild it, I'll still be here. Keep them honest, Lauren. Then silence. Alyssa lowered her head. Your sister just became part of the machine. I closed my eyes. No. She became its conscience. Outside, dawn broke over the base, pale light cutting through the clouds. The air was still, for once. No alarms, no alerts, no chaos. Alyssa stood beside me, watching the horizon. You think it's over? I shook my head. Not over. Just quieter. We stood there in silence, two soldiers who had seen too much of what truth costs. I thought about loyalty, the kind they drill into you until it feels like oxygen. And I realized it isn't about obeying orders or protecting secrets. It's about protecting what's right, even if you have to destroy the uniform to do it. Somewhere inside the government's hidden servers, a machine was learning the one thing no one programmed it to understand: doubt. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like hope.